Hi, my name is Jeff McCord, and I work for a company called Nickel Brothers. We move and lift houses. We've been in business since 1956, and it's a family company where all of the skills of how to move a full-size, massive home have been learned and passed down from generation to generation. We've done a count recently, and we found out that we've moved or lifted over 10,000 homes, which is about the number of homes that there are in Anacortes, Washington. One thing that was quite a shock to us is that when we came back from the holidays at the beginning of 2023, we had about 5 times the volume of calls. The reason was because there was a huge king tide event on December 27th of 2022. There was a combination of heavy rains, wind, and storm surge, as well as a low pressure system that caused a lot more flooding and a higher tidal range than usual. Because of that, many houses were flooded that were along the shoreline. And ironically, some of the ones that were flooded the most had things like armoring along the shore, rather than natural vegetation and logs and things like that. What we were able to do is give them quotes for moving the houses back from the shoreline or lifting them up in place to give some height above future high tides. Lifting your house out of that tidal zone is something that will vastly improve the safety and the lifespan of that house. All throughout the Northwest, there are homeowners that do live in areas where there is natural bluff erosion. There's an example of it right here, as you can see. It's not a bad thing to actually move back from the bluff, both from a safety perspective as well as the longevity of the house. Because even though it will have an expense to pay to move it back, you can also decide if you want to lift it up higher once it's back, and that will actually keep your view more or less the same as it was when it was in its original position by having the extra height. You also gain more usable space, and that actually adds to the equity of your home because you've basically doubled your square footage. So in effect, even though you have the expense of the move and the new foundation and the new higher stud walls, you'll actually recoup that in your investment in the house. There are 2 key situations when it makes sense to move or lift a house. One is in situations when you're within the foreseeable future of storm surges and sea level rise. And in that situation, it makes a lot of sense to consider lifting the house so that you're actually above the anticipated high tidal marks for not just now, but also in the future. What we've learned from the Shore Friendly program is that the prevailing practices of armoring our shores is not a healthy thing for the environment. And in fact, it ultimately compounds some of the flooding situations we have. When there are things like riprap installed that you then have to later maintain or replace to great expense, the choice of removing that and actually moving the houses up and or back from the shore is actually something in the long term will cost less because it's a more permanent fix. By lifting the house up, you're anticipating what the future sea level rise is going to be, as well as storm surges and other natural phenomena and events. When I'm approached to give an idea of cost to lift a house out of, say, a floodplain or a tidal situation, it does depend on the size of the house and the conditions of how it needs to be loaded and lifted and supported. However, if you're taking just an average, say, 1,600 square foot house and you're lifting it in place, the actual lifting cost could range anywhere from about $25,000 for a small house up to $60,000 or more. If it was a very large house, it could be over $100,000, but it's not in the hundreds of thousands. You would still have to provide a new foundation under the house, and that too will have a big cost, but it's another permanent fix that gets you out of harm's way. We all know how important our homes are in our lives, and we certainly don't want to see them damaged or lost due to the natural occurrences that we have in our environment. One of the best ways to do that is to lift them out of harm's way when it comes to sea level rise and storm surges. And another way is to move it back from the bluff. And sometimes we can even lift it up when we've done that. Even if you are building an environmentally sustainable house in place of an old one, tearing down the old house, it would actually take 50 years or more to actually make up for the loss of that house in terms of the carbon impact. Instead of just tearing down that home, allow it to be moved, because not only would you be saving the demolition costs, but also you're actually providing a home that's affordable to another person, and you're saving a huge amount of material from going into a landfill. So if you live on the shoreline and you feel that your home might be at risk, please contact your local shore-friendly program and find out what options you might have.
If you're thinking about building a house close to the shoreline, or if you already live in a home close to the water, you may have concerns about the long-term safety and stability of your home. If you're an existing homeowner whose home is close to the water and may be at risk, it's never too soon to see if your house might be a good candidate for relocation. Follow the link in the description of this video to contact your local shore-friendly organization today to learn about options that will work for you and your specific concerns.